Okie dokie. So let's go back. We're recording now. Let's go back to here. Repeat that. Okay, so this is called a motor nerve because it makes the muscles move. These are long filaments made out of long proteins, and skeletal muscle is also called striated muscle because there are stripes vertical to the long axis of the filament. So these are the muscle fibers, which is a muscle cell. Each one of these is a muscle cell, and the nerve impulse travels from the spinal cord and causes an electrical signal. The first thing it does is it allows calcium to move through open calcium channels, and the action potential or electrical signal that comes down the nerve open those calcium channels, and the calcium channels allow calcium to come in. That activates the vesicles that carry acetylcholine to release acetylcholine. Okay, so again, that's the nerve impulse. Each one of these is called a synaptic knob or a synaptic bouton. Uh, there's a gap between the ending of this axon and the muscle filament. That's the synapse. The surface of the muscle that develops to allow very, very close contact with these synaptic endings is called the motor end plate. So what's going to happen when the impulse gets to the end of the nerve, calcium channels open, calcium flows into these endings. That allows the activation of the synaptic vesicles, which contain the acetylcholine, which is a neurotransmitter, and that neurotransmitter is released into the synaptic gap, and it binds to uh, sodium channels that open in response to the acetylcholine. Okay, so this is the motor end plate down here. This is the axon ending. These are the calcium channels. Okay, so the acetylcholine is a neurotransmitter. Once the vesicles fuse with this bimolecular leaflet phospholipid layer, because all membranes are made of phospholipid bilayers. So this acetylcholine is a neurotransmitter. It binds to these channels, which are now closed. And when the acetylcholine binds, the channels open to allow sodium to flow in. And when sodium flows into the muscle, the voltage of the muscle changes. And as we keep going, okay, so These are called chemical gated channels. These sodium channels are opened by the neurotransmitter. This is the nerve ending. The gap is the synapse. A synapse means a gap between a nerve and a nerve, or nerve and muscle. So when the sodium channels that are opened by acetylcholine that are on the motor end plate, when they're opened up, sodium rushes in. That causes an electrical signal to move toward these other sodium channels, which are opened by changes in voltage. So these are called voltage gated channels. The one that allow acetylcholine to bind and open these channels are called chemically gated channels. So what the priol does, which is a poison made by certain types of snails, the priol is a large protein probably that plugs the excuse me, calcium channels and blocks the calcium from going in. With no calcium, there's no release of the neurotransmitter. There's no opening of the chemically gated channels on the motor end plate. And there's no change in voltage because sodium is a positive ion and it rushes into the inside of the cell. It causes that change in voltage to open up these chemically gated channels. Voltage gated channels. Okay, so let's look at the next animation. Well, let's stop recording and we'll record this separately. So let's stop recording. Stop recording.